Saturn. So people in the world consider Saturn a very malefic energy. In the world of astrology, it is known as the greater malefic. Saturn, however, is the ruler of the Aquarian age that we are moving into. And so knowing what Saturn wants and is hoping to achieve in your chart helps you to move into this Aquarian perspective that we are moving into right now. So if I were to say anything about Saturn, just like from my base knowledge as an astrologer, it is that Saturn is about whether you are the lady of your estate. Are you, in fact, the sovereign overlord? You are the lord of your estate. That is Saturn's basic construct. With that, it can feel like you have to persevere, you have to work hard, things are very difficult. Why do I have to endure this? This is also difficult. And as I was saying in some of my notes this week, one of the most important teachings that Demetra George gave me was, remember, I came in as a shaman. So I had a lot of magical skills and I kind of felt like I could fix anything. You know, like I was really good at soul retrieval. At the time, I was practicing shaman where I could release entities from people and also from different timelines pull back parts of soul fragments that had been lost to make the person more cohesive, more coherent. And when I got to the teachings with Demetra George, she indicated that it really didn't matter in some cases, what your skill level was, what medicine you were taking, what shamanic inquiry you were observing, or so forth. She said, be careful with that, Lalita, because she has seen parents spend their entire life trying to cure some kind of a Saturnian situation in the chart of their child. And they would spend all these years driving around to shamans and trying to use different remedies and figure out how to help their child. And she had the name of a particular woman who was a very good anthropologist, actually, and it was their child that could not be helped. And Demetra was her personal friend, and she kept looking at the chart and trying to do the asteroids and figure out how to help this child that had a crippling experience in this life. Now, what Saturn is, whether we like it or not, is when Saturn is really prominent in your chart, it is what you must endure. So I'm going to start with, although I've spoken about this before, that my Saturn is in the 8th house. It is conjunct the asteroid Richard, which is my father's name. And my father did die quite young. And I had to endure the abandonment and the loss and the letting go of my father. So Saturn often indicates your father and your relationship with men in general, but your father in particular in the chart. And then it's the wound, actually, from that situation that you must make conscious and endure. So it's also kind of like the moon, which involves your mother, and you're bringing that into your awareness and then trying to either soften or release whatever trauma it is around your moon. With Saturn, it's something that you must absolutely be persevering about. It's always going to be somewhat difficult to do Saturn in your chart. But here is what Saturn likes. Saturn is a planet of cold, and I would say cruel perseverance. So it likes the cold signs. It likes Capricorn. It's the domicile lord in Capricorn, which is about, December 22nd and 23rd, when it's dark in the Northern Hemisphere and it's cold and it feels cruel. And around that time, December 22nd was an experience that we used to perform called Saturnalia. And it would flip everything that we knew about our regular laborious life. And it was this celebration where the slaves all got to go and party, and they got gifts from the slave holders. And it was a very strange event where the slaves all got to dance and party. That was Saturnalia. They made that into Xmas. That's what Xmas is now. So Saturn is this really like hardcore, cold, cruel energy in the chart. And yet it's the chart. I mean, it's the planet of mastery. Jupiter is the planet of the teacher, the one who can teach and expand and be optimistic and brilliant and look at the bright side. Saturn is the planet that can look at the dark side and endure something that has been quite difficult, painful, that you might have to persevere. That's Saturn. And when you really get Saturn, it gives you wisdom. So I have associated the planets with the different chakras. To me, Saturn's the third eye. You have to really persevere and do the work to see through this realm into the non-ordinary realities. Saturn is also what I consider the keeper of the gate. So if you've heard about the seven heavens or the seven gates, Saturn is the seventh gate. So around Saturn is, you will see in the old pictures, which I did put up also today, in the community post page on YouTube, the second picture after Carlos Castaneda's dreaming book is the picture of Saturn as the seventh gate. So it is often, if you cannot move through that gate effectively, you get moved back to the reincarceration program to the moon. So that's where people get those words around the Saturn moon matrix. Saturn is the ultimate and final keeper of the gate. So think about this. In the Book of the Dead, the Tibetan book, or the Egyptian Day of Coming Forth, both are about how to move through these gates. So in the ancient world, the Hathors, which was the particular group of Egyptians who worked on this, and they were primarily women, they would poison themselves. They would take something that would actually force them out of their body, and they would go through each of the gates and figure out how to deal with Mercury, how to deal with Venus, how to do Mars, and so forth, all the way to the seventh gate, which is Saturn. Okay. And then once they knew how to deal with the gate holder, the gatekeeper at Saturn, if you know how to get through that gate, then you're free. Then you're out into the outer planets, and the outer planets are more of the creator God planets. We will look at some of the creator God planets before we end our coursework this year. So Saturn, people don't like Saturn. They don't want to do Saturn. It's sad sometimes. It's cold. It's harsh. It's cruel. It rules Capricorn and it rules Aquarius, which in the Northern Hemisphere is the very cold, persevering time of year. Now, if Saturn is the seventh gate and it makes the master, then what are the words that you need for Saturn? What are Saturn's words? Their structure. It's the backbone. It's the skeletal system. All of those words that I've already spoken: patience, wisdom, the ability to set boundaries, to be responsible, dependable, mature, and also somewhat silent and still. So Saturn is like, not like Mars, which is moving very fast. It is stillness and silence and perseverance. It makes a great ascetic. So if Saturn's very strong in your chart, you tend to be more reserved, withdrawn, removed, colder. And that's where you get the assignments in Aquarius of someone who's a hermit that just lives by themselves out on the hill. If we're moving into the age of Aquarius and Saturn is its ruler, it's also who is responsible enough to be a sovereign person that doesn't need government, doesn't need education, does not need religion, no longer wants any kind of indoctrinating bull crap from this system, and knows that they are their own law, they are their own system of justice, and they don't need any of the draconian courts that have been set up here. The other thing about Saturn is Ceres is the female goddess of the grain, but Saturn is known as the god of agriculture. So he comes with a scythe, right? And the scythe is the cutter of that grain. So if you go into the mythology about Saturn and the Saturn moon matrix, is that if you didn't make the cut and your grain was not ripe, you go back to the moon and you start again. That was in the old system. Now, I made a video this week about the unresolved dead consciousnesses because there were questions in the comments last week about that. The people that watched our video still had questions. They could not understand these dead unresolved consciousnesses like the Jehovah Anunnaki. They are dead and they have to feed upon us. So Saturn is ultimately trying to teach you how to endure without being tricked by all the inorganic, unresolved, dead consciousnesses that would otherwise, trick you in dream time, trick you into channeling them when they're actually absorbing your knowledge, but pretending to be the knowledge. So I wrote some notes about Carlos Castaneda with the particular pages on the community page for all of you to look at today. But with Saturn as the god of agriculture and us moving into the Aquarian age, I'm always going, what you grow is what you reap. What you sow is what you reap. So that is the sickle, right? And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to have to work hard. I don't want to have to persevere. I want some young people to come in and do that. But this is not your responsibility. That is not their responsibility. The thing about Saturn is it rules old age. It is the keeper of time, or Chronos. And so if you have done your agriculture, if you have raised your own crops, you tend to have great old age. When Claude and I go to where we get milk at Huckins Farm in New Hampshire at Huckins, they have all kinds of farm animals. We're there just getting like the yogurt and the milk and so forth. They also have raw cheese there that we get. And you see a woman she looks like she's 100 years old, okay? And she's bent over and she's quite thin, but she's out there feeding the animals and taking care of the fencing and doing everything. Because I'll tell you what, Saturn gives longevity. It also gives longevity to those wise people who are the lord and ladies of their estates. So you might feel like it's an offense. Like, I don't want to have to work that hard. I don't want to have to learn how to grow my own food. I don't want to have to plant tomatoes. But to me, if you follow Saturn's construct of being the lord of your own estate, you start to get wisdom. The other thing about Saturn is if you live on your astromap line of Saturn, which I'm not saying is easy, it's not easy, but I lived on my astromap line of Saturn for 25 years. And so 25 years of my life, I was extremely dedicated to agriculture. So as scary as it is to sometimes live on your Saturn line, it will kick your butt every morning, and you'll get up and you'll get out there and you'll take all the little weird parasites out of the zucchini, because there's all brand new parasites again this year. And Claude's out there with his scalpel, like literally cutting a line in the stem and taking out a weird parasite. There are so many unbelievable gross parasites out there. But that's the Lord of your estate. You're not going to let parasites eat your squash. Okay. So that is some of Saturn's thing. The other thing I want to get into is boundaries. All right. I have a fence around my whole yard. I have a fence around the whole yard in Florida too. Good fences make good neighbors. Good fences make good neighbors. This is absolutely the fact and the truth. So my neighbor next to me has a dog that has bloodied her and other people several times, but she won't fence her dog. She won't even put a collar on her dog. So her dog is a disaster dog. She won't take responsibility for it, but I have my yard fenced. Okay. I am the Lord of my estate. So I don't have any problems with her because my yard is protected. So it's really about you protecting yourself, having boundaries. Now, what we've been told, and I spoke a little bit about this yesterday, or whatever day, I can't remember at this point. I made the live video about the dead unresolved consciousnesses still affecting us. There's another boundary that I want to talk about in dream time. There's another boundary. And I put up a video called the Tribal Shield. So before I got on today, I did the dance with Claude, and I really worked hard on clearing my energy, making sure I'm very clear, and then activating my star Merkaba and making sure that it's spinning the correct way. So what the Metatronic star Merkaba reversals did was they spun everybody's star Merkaba the wrong way. So it's also your responsibility, Saturn, to know how to spin your star Merkaba the correct way, how to make it happen every single day. That's called discipline, that Saturn wants you to have as a discipline, and to make sure that you're really shielded even in dream time. So last night, very weird energies coming in. And I was like, Claude, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Oh my gosh, something's wrong. So with the inorganic beings, you have to shield from that. And Carlos Castaneda gives a wonderful description, and I gave all the page numbers to look on, of how if anyone is channeling those inorganic beings, meaning the Pleiadians, he tells them little gray men in gray robes, he calls it a cowl, or the Anunnaki, like every church on the whole planet is channeling the Anunnaki. What they do is they then draw energy from you, and you are not the Lord of your estate. So there's agreements that they have with all these channelers, which includes churches and other people online who are channeling or writing books from, that they can then come and siphon your energy forever. And in fact, they can try and trick you into their world so that you are theirs and you never have any knowledge of your own. And you can't write a paper by yourself because you have to depend on these entities, these inorganic beings that you are channeling and that are showing up in your living room or in your bedroom at night, and or out there. For me, if any of those things come around, I go, get out of here. Like whatever you are, get out of here. Even if it's a human dead being, I would send them right to the galactic central sun. I don't want any information from you. I don't know who you are. I don't want to know your story. You're not in the right place. So boundaries, fences are good in this reality and in all realities. And some people will do certain practices before they go to sleep at night to make sure that nothing can affect them and come in at night. But it also depends on what are you watching or reading during the day. If you're watching or reading someone who's channeling dead, unresolved consciousnesses, like the Anunnaki, out of the Bible, Like, I don't read that thing straight through. I will open it, read a section, and then close it. Okay. Don't read that thing straight through, because that is a way of channeling those entities. Like, I read from Zephaniah this week, but I didn't read straight through, because that is a way of bringing them into your energy field. So boundaries are incredibly important. And I will often just do divination with books like that to get some information and then, put the thing down. So those are some of the things about Saturn. People don't know, but it gives you more stamina if you have good boundaries. As an astrologer, I put up a post that I did a retreat in Sedona, and I won't name names right now, but I did a retreat some years ago in Sedona, and the person who was offering the retreat was also my client. And her personal life, she had no boundaries. She could never say no to anything. So she was in deep, deep bankruptcy, huge amounts of debt, unbelievable chaos in her personal life with her partner and his family, and yet offering retreats nonstop. Like, she's a wisdom teacher. So finally, my gift to her was this. I kept trying to get her to say the word no. She could not even say the word no to me. So finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to give you a gift right now. You cannot have any more sessions with me. My answer to you is no. You cannot book another session with me. And I kept waiting for her to like understand the gift that I was giving, which was a no. And she just melted and broke down and went right back into what I'm going to call codependent behavior. And yet, offering retreats, no boundaries at all, nothing at all. As long as you can pay money, you can come. All right. Now, just this week, I had a client session with someone who is working on coming to our retreat. And she just came back from Ecuador. So I'm going to use this example. It was the same thing. Whoever can afford it can come. And it was a terrifying disaster in the middle of a jungle, in the middle of nowhere, with nothing to support her with people that were all over in their levels of consciousness and actually doing harm to this woman. So that's the thing about being a master, is that you have to have boundaries. Say the word no. Practice saying no. I mean, and I think, the religious people say that you always have to say yes. You have to say yes. You're not supposed to say no. You're supposed to be this obedient, complying, whatever, yes person, because God is your savior and God is coming. Just say yes. Say yes to everything. And I'm like, wow. If someone tried to get me to go into one of those little wooden things and confess my sins, you know what I'd say? Here's Saturn, bud. Saturn. Okay. I'm sure you're all laughing, but everyone has muted themselves. But anyways, this is Saturn right there. It's the finger of Saturn. And I am the Lord of my estate. So it's okay. So Sandy is putting a laughing emoji. So that's Saturn, folks. It's you are the Lord of your estate. Stacy's liking that one too. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? I am not going to tell you my personal life and have somebody absolve me of my sins. That's your responsibility and only yours. Okay. So some people are putting up the middle finger emoji. I didn't even know there was that one. Hysterical. Okay, so that's Saturn. And if you don't have like a good Saturn in your chart for some reason, then you have to build it up. You have to build up that ability to say no, to put up a fence line, to make a boundary with your neighbor who keeps encroaching and their dog is trying to bite your dog or whatever it is. Good fences make good neighbors. It also makes for a very wise person that you feel safe that you could actually study with because they have some freaking boundaries. Okay. So I associate it with a third eye. I have this picture of this woman diving down into the ocean, and I put a little flower on her third eye because it very much is your wisdom center. This is also the Christ consciousness center. So if you get to this point of really being the master of your estate, which is your physical body, it's also your astral body, it's all of your different bodies through all of the dimensions. If you are the Lord of your estate, you are completely free. So people think that Saturn binds us. That's not what Saturn does. Saturn gives you the difficulties, the hard work, the perseverance to go through something so that in this realm, you persevered that. When you go through the dimensions, I told you Saturn is the seventh gate, you'll have a really strong ability to stand your ground with any machine elves or other inorganic beings who are trying to give you a life review. They're trying to give you a life review, and you're going, you're an inorganic being. It's very like in the Monty Python show where there's the bridge of death, the bridge of death. And the sorcerer is on the bridge of death. And he's going to ask you, what is your favorite color? You know, some ridiculous thing of some machine elf from whatever bizarre overlay is on this pristine system is asking you your favorite color. Now, that's, to me, that doesn't even qualify as a question of merit. All right. So they're going to get this from me at that bridge. If the sorcerer is asking my favorite color, I'm going to be like, right there, bud. You know, so how do you get through these gates? You get through the gates by being a master here, a master of your world here. Now, why do we want to know also about planetary condition? Because whatever condition your planets are in, not only are the house and sign, so for instance, mine is in Taurus in the 8th house, not only is Saturn working with me in that 8th house, which is the house of letting go, right? Because it's the one just before the sun sets over the descendant in the West. The 8th house is like, will you incur debt? What is your debt? It's all of that kind of stuff. So you have to be able to hold your own. And then what condition the planet is in gives you the condition of the other signs that it rules. So if my Saturn is in Taurus and it's the 8th house, it does not configure to the ascendant. So geometrically, I already have a mark against my Saturn, but it's cold and stable in Taurus. So Saturn likes Taurus. It likes to be cool, and it likes something that can be solid and stable like Taurus. So in that way, I have a plus for my Saturn. So it's kind of like that. What does Saturn not like? It does not like to be hot, like Aries, and it does not like to be wet, like Scorpio, Cancer, or Pisces. It does not like to be hot, even like Leo. Okay. It does not really like so much even to be hot like Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is mutable, so it's a little bit better there. But where it really does not like to be is in Aries, because that's cardinal fire and it's very fast and it wants to move fast. So if your Saturn is in Aries, you need to learn how to have super strong boundaries, depending on what's, you know, if it's in the 8th house, like Claude's, it does not configure to the ascendant. So he's really had to learn boundaries. And I'll tell you what that looks like. He said I could use his chart example. I'll be in the store I'll use one that's in Madison. So then at least the people who know me in Madison, I'll be in the Winn-Dixie and I'll be like checking out of the Winn-Dixie with our bananas and our whatever, right? Because I don't grow bananas yet. And I'll be checking out and I'll look out in the parking lot and Claude is engaging with someone that even at that distance through glass doors, 200 feet away, I'm going, oh my gosh, Claude, who are you talking to now? You're gonna get yourself in trouble. Oh my gosh. And I'll be out there going, Claude, what are you doing? Holy crap. And he's with somebody who we should not even be talking to. And then he gets mixed up in it, and the entities from that person jump into Claude. And then I have to come out, and Claude is somebody else. And I'm like, oh my gosh, honey, you just like, you got cooties all over you now. We got to clear them. Clear, 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 clear. So that's what I'm talking about with boundaries. They're not just in this reality. They're also, I know, Sandy, and you know who I'm talking about too, Sandy, because he visits your neighbor. That guy who is covered with weird inorganic parasites. And I'm like, it's not that I don't love him. I love everybody, but I have very strong boundaries. I don't want those inorganic cooties on my partner, on my dog, in my car, near my house, in my bed at night. That is Saturn's domain. And that is how you become a master. Saturn is actually a very good planet in terms of mastery. Is it malefic? Yes, because you have to say no. When sometimes you just want to say, oh yeah, everybody can come. Yeah, this crazy person who's covered with entities, oh yeah, you can come too. No. The word is no. Everyone try it right now. No. Say it like that. You can keep yourself muted, just practice. Everyone who's also watching this video, say no. How did it feel? Ooh, some people think that feels great. Yeah, that made Ezzy jump right up when I said it like that. Because that word yeah, is a full sentence. That word reverberates out through the dimensions too. All right. So whatever is messing with me, people are always like, how do I defend myself? How do I shield myself? How about a solid no? And everything has to respond to that, because when you are the Lord of your estate, things have to obey your personal property, your personal space. This is the Lord of the estate. I am Lalita. This is my land. There's a no trespassing sign down there. Okay. So that is the nature of Saturn. Now, this is also one little article that I want to show you. Okay. This is about Saturn. And where I got this, which you can always get, is a discarded astronomy. Another way of doing astrology is to actually study astronomy. So the Titans are in the rings around Saturn. So there's the mythology of Saturn being thrown into Tartarus and severed with the Titans. So Saturn was the golden age ruler of when the Titans were here. And they were kind of probably like us, but in our full capacity. And then when we were invaded, these Titans were fought against. You heard of the Olympians and the Titans and the wars. They were thrown in the ice rings around Saturn. So if you read this article, it says, most planetary scientists once thought Saturn's rings were as old as Saturn itself, 4.5 billion years. But a spacecraft that orbited Saturn. There are no humans in that spacecraft, okay? But orbited Saturn from 2004 to 2017 accumulated evidence that the rings are relatively recent and that the early dinosaurs were smart enough to build, if they were smart enough to build telescopes, that's interesting, they might not have seen the rings around Saturn at all. That is your galactic history, folks. The dinosaurs are the Dracos. They're the reptilians. All of those bones that you find, those are our invaders. Those are the reptilians. All right? Tyrannosaurus Rex, guess what that is? That's a reptilian. That's a Draco. So if they were able to build telescopes, they might have been able to see the rings. But what if they were the ones that put those titans in those rings? They didn't need to build a telescope because they came here as slaves to the Anunnaki. They were the slaves that did the mining for Nibiru. And that's a whole other thing that I'm not going to get into in astrology. But basically, you can learn a lot about astrology if you know galactic history. Then you can be like, oh, of course the dinosaurs wouldn't have seen the rings because the dinosaurs are the ones that put them there. So that was the reptilian invasion. And the reptilians, again, were the slaves. They were slave workers to the Anunnaki. And the slaves, you know, if you've listened to Billy Carson about this, he's got it mixed up because he believes Thoth. But anyways, Billy Carson will tell you that those reptilian slaves wanted the women of Earth. They didn't like just working. And that's how we got hybridized. The other thing, if you read Carlos Castaneda's book, he says very quite clearly, just as I have said, is that there are no men out there in the universe. It's women. We're all female out there in the multiverse. Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan had that conversation. So am I right or am I wrong? That men came from Mars with the reptilians. And the men are going to be like, what are you talking about, Lolita? Well, if you can believe everything else that Don Juan is teaching Carlos Castaneda, can you believe that when you're out there and you're a free being in the multiverse, you're female? Okay. So here there are males, and Saturn does rule fathers in your chart. In fact, when my father died, in one of my old videos with the former group of the Galactic Shaman Astrologers, I showed all of the transits for my father's departure date. And it was like his name, Pluto and Saturn were conjoined in my 12th house. My natal Saturn was also receiving an asteroid and different kinds of planets that, you know, basically said that was the day that he exited. So that was an exit date for my father, and it was in my chart. And I've taught that before, that often the exit date will be in your children's chart, which is a really bizarre phenomenon. But Demetra taught me that. Now, I'm going to turn this a little bit, okay, and show you. I finally was able to pull out Sinead O'Connor's chart. Last week, I knew it was in my pile somewhere, but I get so mind cracked and my eyes get tired, so I couldn't even find it. But anyways, this is Sinead O'Connor's chart. So we're going to look at her Saturn. Just see what was, this is a biography of Sinead O'Connor. So like Demetra, if I were to write a book, and I might write an astrology book from the shamanic perspective, I would probably use Jeffrey Dahmer and Sinead O'Connor. I would probably use both of them. In Demetra's newest books, she uses Pablo Picasso and the woman who is married to JFK. Trying to think of her name. Somebody put her name. Anyways, I don't really follow those people. She was one of the Nephilim families too. Uh, anyways, you know who I'm talking. Oh, Onassis. Onassis. Yes. So the Onassis are Nephilim, as are the Kennedys. So, and they'll have the little split in their chin. So if you look at RFK, he has that very strong split in his chin. So does Sinead O'Connor. Very interesting. So they're definitely Draco hybrids. So when I'm talking about what happened with the invasion, a lot of people got hybridized. All of us are somewhat hybridized. And some of the elite families kept that hybridization going. All right, that is how they do it. Now with Sinead O'Connor, she has Saturn in Pisces. So let's start to study this. Is it cold? Maybe. Pisces is cold. Is it dry? No, it's wet. All right. So her Saturn is sitting in conjunction to Chiron. So when you look at your chart, you say, okay, Saturn's there. Chiron is also there. Chiron is a 50-year orbit and Saturn's a 29-year orbit. So Saturn is just beyond her Chiron. So that means it's a separating, but still it's the wound of her early childhood home and family because it's in the fourth house. So if you read biographies about Sinead O'Connor, she complains a lot about her family, a lot about her religious upbringing in Ireland, the strict Catholic nuns or whomever were teaching her. Ireland was very strict because it was a land of tribal shaman people. Okay, so they really infiltrated Ireland very hard with the Catholic stuff and all the Abrahamic religions. And then they got them fighting, you know, the Protestants versus the Catholics. And that's how it always goes with the Anunnaki. They want to get everybody fighting because they benefit from the blood and the loosh of the death from that fighting. So with Sinead, she has Chiron first, and then Saturn separating, and then after that, she has Black Moon Lilith. So one of the things that Sinead also really stood for was like women's liberation. Basically, you know, she was not going to behave. She was very upset about her early childhood upbringing. But that was, you know, if she had an astrologer, the astrologer could have said, well, you are the black sheep of your family. You have Chiron, Saturn, and then Black Moon Lilith. In my video about Chiron, which is out there if you ever want to read it, I've spoken about that Chiron-Saturn conjunction group is also goes back to the mythology of the rape of the sea nymphs, which were often the Mer people. So Ireland, Scotland, all very tied into the Mer lineages. And Black Moon Lilith was, she like wanted to be the wild, fierce Lilith, the unadulterated woman who's not going to bow down. So she shaved her head and she was very outspoken about many things. But her Saturn condition is pretty sad. In the water signs, Saturn tends to be quite sad. In Scorpio, it tends to be secretive and sad. In Cancer, it's just full on depressed, like very depressing to have Saturn in Cancer because Saturn's a domicile lord in Capricorn. So you know it's a detriment in Cancer. Now, the water condition of Saturn and Pisces is like, where is God? Because it's that Pisces fish's tail tied to your spiritual self. By the time Sinead was 52 years old, she turned Muslim. And that is because with Saturn and Chiron, she's searching to fit in to some bigger spiritual thing. And if you don't know that Sinead tried many different spiritual practices, she did until when she was 52 years old, she was like, I'm going to be a Muslim. And she put on the robes. or what, what, I'm sorry if I'm inappropriately, I don't know the language for the robes that she was wearing. But what happened to Sinead in between? So I want to show you something. In this picture, Sinead has a black eye. And if you don't know about the Black Eye Club, I'm going to tell you right now. A lot of people that go into entertainment are forced, whether they like it or not, to join the club. All right. And when they have a black eye like that and they get up on stage and she looks terrible and miserable, it's because they were involved in one of the horrible rituals that Tracy Twyman reported about. So, unfortunately, I think, like many of our musicians, that world has been very difficult, and mix that with pharmaceuticals, and you got some problems. And that is what Sinead had. She had some pretty bad problems, so that she exited on the day when the sun was coming to Jupiter, which is the ruler of her ascendant. She should have been having a beautiful day that day. The sun and Jupiter, benefic, should have been a fabulous day because it's the ninth house, higher learning, metaphysics, all things God, and things that are good and beautiful for people, sun and Jupiter. But she took and she exited. Okay. Many people exited at that time. So for Sinead, Saturn rules her house of siblings, and there are no planets there. So she's not really able to bring out conditions of siblings. And I don't know anything about her siblings. Don't know anything about it. It's not really prominent in the life or in the biography. Maybe she didn't even have siblings. So Saturn rules her third house. Saturn also rules her second house, which ought to be full of fortune because she's got the part of fortune there. But Saturn is in pretty poor condition here in a water sign. So as much as she was trying to be the lord of her estate, somehow she got into the Black Eye Club. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you are not able to say no and turn down the career and turn down the money, turn down the, security that you're perceiving by being able to get up on stage and produce another record, and you don't have a strong Saturn, like Sinead did not, you might drink the juice. And those of you who know about the Black Eye Club, you know what kind of juice I'm talking about. So this is really telling about someone who does not have strong boundaries, but has a lot of sadness and misery from her childhood and her upbringing. So if you hear her songs, it's very about her mother and her sadness around her family, and that her mother wanted things that her mother could not have, and she was not going to be like that. I don't know. Very difficult. Her moon otherwise is in Libra and conjunct Vesta, where she had almost like a high priestess quality to her, right? So that's interesting too, because we know that the moon in Libra is a people pleaser, has a very hard time saying no. And because her Saturn is in Pisces, she may not have been able to say no. She might not have had really strong boundaries. As much as she could get up on stage and rip up a picture of the Pope, later on, she went into some other religious thing. But my real concern is what happened here with the Black Eye Club, where she didn't say no, and she was in her career until the very end and still trying to produce records. Sometimes, folks, You have to say no. You have to have boundaries. You have to get out. You have to stop doing that career for the sake of your soul, for the sake of your spirit. Now, in terms of inorganic beings and making deals with them, we don't know what deals the Black Eye Club makes with whatever inorganic beings. But I would say that is why I've also left all popular music, because I don't know what entities they're relying upon or getting their power from or their energy from and so forth. So boundaries are really important with what you listen to, who you associate with, having a good fence with your neighbors, not continuing to do your career until you're actually dead or have given up your life to Chat GPT because you have a lobotomy now. And I'm finding the internet is getting weirder and weirder and weirder and drawing off more and more and more of my energy with people that I totally adore and want to speak with. And yet we're both trying to get our phone to work to have a session. At some point, probably fairly soon, we will all need to say no to every bit of it. And this is very perfect why we're listening, or I know there's an audio of Carlos Castaneda and you can listen to it, or you're reading Carlo Castaneda, The Art of Dreaming, because he tells Don Juan tells his student Carlos, at some point you can keep exploring in these inorganic worlds with these inorganic beings. You can keep playing around with these so-called channels and guides, but they'll never get you to your freedom. They will, in fact, trap you. You won't have your capacity anymore, and you'll never get free. And so Don Juan is like, I am scared for you because you keep using that again and again and again. So at some point, all of us are going to have to say no to this stuff, because even on Claude's old ancient laptop thing, it's asking for facial recognition, and it doesn't even have, it's from 2000. It doesn't even have facial recognition on it. But all the AI is sentient now. It is an inorganic being, and now it's trying to draw energy from us. Okay? It's sucking us dry. It's eating our biofield. At some point, you don't want to be in the Black Eye Club. All right? You're going to say no. So that's what I have for you on that. Now that I've told you that, we're going to quickly look at Saturn in today's chart. This is today's chart. This is an event chart for right now. Right now. So in this chart, we have Saturn has re-entered Pisces, just like Sinead O'Connor's chart. So she would have been having a Saturn return at this point. Saturn returns every 29 years. So you'll have one when you're 29, and then you'll have one when you're 58. So here is Saturn has re-entered Pisces. Guess where it's going? I can't believe this. I totally was not able to tell you all about this. Nessus is retrograde back with the North Node. I don't really know the orbit and the elongation of Nessus in any particular sign, because it's a long one that is elliptical like this, okay? So in some signs it moves quite quickly, like in 2 years, and in other signs it might be there for 12 years. That's what I'm saying. Saturn is back in there to Pisces. Nessus is still in Pisces with the North Node. By December, Saturn and Nessus are going to be within a 6-degree orb. And you know that all planets have a 7-degree orb of influence. So Saturn's coming back. Nessus is moving forward. They're coming together within 6 degrees. And December is when the stupid alleged mothership Atlas is allegedly coming, December. I looked at that and I said, I hope you all have your no ready. I hope you know how to say no. And you notice right now that the word no and no are the same word. K-N-O-W. I know. Because I said no. No. And no. And that just made Essie upset again. Amelie's giving me the thumbs up on that one. So, folks, this is today's chart right now. We're having an eclipse right now. Okay. The eclipse is right now. The way you read an event chart on an eclipse is you say, okay, the north node is the eclipse degree. It's conjunct the moon in Pisces. And everybody with a moon in Pisces can get into like a really spiritual, oh, it'll be okay. It's going to work out. Maybe the mothership has some friendly entities on it. Let me tell you, anything that's coming on a ship is dead. All right, listen again. Anything that's coming on a ship is dead. Because when you're life, you don't need a ship. You travel in your star Merkaba. If you're coming on a ship, you're a dead thing looking for dinner, serving mankind on a plate. So this is something I know, absolute, folks. I know, and I know, all right? So we have Saturn coming back towards Nessus. Nessus conjunct the north node. The moon here, opposite the sun. Orcus is conjunct the sun. So if you did not listen to the conference or conversation that I had with Nish at the Cosmic Salon, that's all in there. Orcus is beyond Pluto. It does have to do with, I'll just read it to you. Beyond Pluto, those outer planets are creator god planets. Anything beyond Pluto are creator gods. So that's also when you get into your creation. Orcus is linked to honesty, integrity, and to the need to face uncomfortable truths, particularly the consequences of those truths. So if you didn't say no and you don't know, then you're going to have some consequences. And that's just how it works, okay? So then I wrote some things. I'll just read you a little bit. So yes, Saturn is Kronos, Father Time, the Grim Reaper. It's about boundaries, responsibility, the ability to endure, to carry on even when it's difficult, but don't carry on when it's eating your soul, okay? Carry on in terms of like digging the grubs out of the zucchini, all right? Carry on with your agriculture. Then you are the lord of your estate, your personal state, okay? People often think they're going to get out of here and they're going to die and they're going to get out of jail free. Not if you have not been the lord of your estate here. It's as above, so below. So if you were not the lord of your estate and knew how to do fences, and when the sorcerer at the bridge of death tries to ask you what your favorite color is or where migrating tufted titmouses go in the south, you know, I mean, like ridiculous. You're not going to answer those questions. You're going to go, no, because you're the lord of your estate. So Saturn does hold the scythe. And if you look at the shape of Saturn, it looks like a scythe, okay? So sort of Ceres, look at the shape of the planetary symbols, and it will tell you a little bit about that too. So if you think that singing the national anthem is going to get you more security, you know, Saturn's like, you are dumb as can be, taking in all those lives from your government, that you are living in the land of the free. So you have to do hard work. You are responsible for your life. And then I did talk about, and you can all just listen to this, that the Jehovah's Anunnaki system says that God somewhere out there loves you no matter what atrocity you engage in, you'll be forgiven for whatever ritual, sacrifice, or atrocity you engage in. And that's why when people are upset with me and they say I'm a fear monger because I'm holding my boundaries, it's because they think God is the Jehovah Anunnaki version of you can do no wrong, you will be forgiven. That's not Saturn's version, folks. All right. Saturn comes from the Orphic tradition of the self-formed primordial being, the personification of time. Kronos is Saturn, ruled during the golden age of personal responsibility, and then Saturn was somehow thrown into Tartarus with the rings of the frozen titans around them. And yes, some people that have the astral abilities are freeing up those titans right now and sending them to entropy, because you can't be, thousands of years in a frozen state and not be psychopathic. You're nuts then. So they're being put into entropy, those titans. It's not like they're going to bring them back here to earth and bring them back. They need to be put in entropy. So that's the story of Saturn and the symbol of Saturn. And people get very upset about, like, why do we have to work so hard? But I love working. I mean, all week when I'm getting all these, lessons ready for you and stuff, like, I really love it. If I can just be in my own space doing hard work and getting things ready, I love that. So when you're out there working for someone else, and I know most people do work for someone else, I do understand that, you're making revenue for them. And I think in a more pristine system, there wouldn't be these scarcity things set up by the Anunnaki, where you could dream what kind of work do you want to do and be really satisfied by that work. So people will get like concerned about, how do I be the Lord of my estate and work for someone else? Well, it is complicated, folks. It doesn't really work very well, honestly. Like, all of us love to work, but many of us have jobs where you're basically selling your soul for that job, like Sinead O'Connor. That's my example. And to keep your job, you got to have that. Folks, you are not the Lord of your estate then. All right? You have to be the Lord of your estate. Now let's look at Saturn a little bit more in terms of these things I wrote back in 2017. And note that I don't use ChatGPT to make my stuff like, I am the Lord of my estate. This is my writing. So let's just see if there's anything that I haven't told you here. So Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius. So wherever it is in your chart and whatever condition it is. So my Saturn's not so bad. It's okay. And it trines my moon Mercury in Capricorn in the 4th house. So it's a trine Earth. So you will see that my home is very earth oriented. Like, it tells, like, how do you bring about the conditions of Capricorn? And that's a seasonal depiction. But where is it? In the 4th house? It is in the 5th house? Is it in the 10th house? And so forth. So it's the ruler of Saturn, rules Capricorn and Aquarius. So therefore, it's not very happy in those opposition signs. Also, it is an exaltation in, let's see, Libra. It's an exaltation in Libra. Oh yeah, we got to talk about that. So it's an exaltation in Libra. So if you have Saturn in Libra, you want justice and law and order, and there you're not so much of a people pleaser if you've got Saturn in Libra. Whereas the opposition, which I know a couple of the people in the group and Claude has Saturn in Aries. In Aries, it wants to move fast. It just wants to get things done. And then Claude will go for a walk without putting socks on under his sneakers, and they'll have blisters all over his feet. So what Saturn makes you do is it makes you slow down, put your socks on correctly, tie your shoes correctly, and walk with authority. Otherwise, you're going to have blisters from going too fast. That's Saturn in Aries. You got to slow down, and do it right. Okay, so Aries wants to just do it. You got to get up first. We're gonna get going. We're gonna find those cooties in the garden. We're gonna squish them, but not if you didn't put socks and your proper boots on. Okay. Yeah. So some people are having, so you're starting to realize where your Saturns are. So, so it is authority over fields, buildings, structures. If your Saturn is not in good condition and you're living like not in a house that you like, know that that's the condition of your Saturn and just keep persevering, just keep working until you get a proper house that you like, a proper piece of land. So fields, buildings, structures, irrigation, so water. You want a well, folks. You don't want to drink city water. Okay. You want your own water. Abundance, inheritance, because when Saturn's in the 8th house, sometimes you get inheritance, windfalls, ability to set boundaries, and most importantly, the ability to say no, willingness to be responsible, patient, dependable, consistent. Saturn is the ruler of age, old age, and time. So sometimes when your Saturn's in not such good condition, like when you get older, you might get your house, or you might get some money, or you might put up your fence line and build your garden and so forth. So keep going, because Saturn likes people who will persevere until they get what they want from their land. So immense endurance. If you have Saturn conjunct your sun, it could be lonely. It could be a struggle, particularly if it's in the 12th house, because that's where Saturn finds its joy, in the 12th house. If you've got Saturn conjunct the sun in the 12th house, there's no quick remedy, hun. You just got to endure. It's hard, but be conscious, be patient, be dependable, be consistent. Eventually, Saturn will come through as great wisdom for you, even if it is conjunct your sun in the 12th house. So Saturn in the 12th house is super tough, folks. It's very tough because the 12th house is like hidden demons and imprisonments. So if you or your clients or your family members have Saturn in the 12th house, you got something eating at you that you don't even know about. It could have been something previous lifetimes, because the 12th house is like, what were the previous agreements of monster things that you're still making a deal with from previous lives? That's the 12th house. Or if your parents did some weird ritual to bring you in, some wishing and praying to bring you in, you will have to endure a Saturn in the 12th house. So that one's really hard. The color is castor, kind of, yellowy color. So that's Saturn. Lead is its metal. So remember, Mars was iron. If you've got Saturn and Mars together, and I know one chart that actually has Mars, Nessus on the south node, and then Saturn. Holy crap. Folks, I have never had a more difficult client than that person. It was Mars, Nessus on the south node, and Saturn. And I gave about 5 sessions too, and then I was like, no more. But that is really hard because it's the two malefics together on the south node. Both of them, it's called an enclosure to Nessus. It makes my stomach, like, I have to clear just even thinking about that chart. Like, holy crap, folks. That is really intense. So very malefic in that case. When Saturn is lead and Mars is iron and Nessus is in between rape, murder, and blood poisoning, it's just like rubbing against each other. It's a very, very difficult configuration. Yeah, you do not want to have that. I only have one client in the history of over 10,000 charts that I've hand drawn that has that. So it's very rare. The other one that I've reviewed is the guy Archaics. I can't think of his name right now, but he does that show called Archaics. He has a Saturn Nessus conjunction from 1973. and he was a rapist. I mean, he was oh, his name is Jason. Yeah. He was a rapist, and I have shared like his criminal record. Every year he has to go in and be photographed. But I think he's part of the Black Eye Club, like Sinead ended up being, where now he's got this huge platform with hundreds of thousands of people listening to him. And he started with the nasty stuff when he was very young. He was assaulting women when he was very young. And then when he was in prison, that Saturn Nessus kept him going. He was in trouble when he was actually in prison. And I used to share all the court documents trying to get people to wake up. Like, I know that's so overused, being woke and everything. But I was like, folks, look at his chart. This is someone who is raping the entire consciousness of humankind right now and has hundreds and thousands, who knows where he is now, of people that he influences. So that's a Saturn Nessus too. So it's in a detriment. Saturn is in a detriment in Cancer and Leo, and it's in a fall in Aries, where it wants to move fast like Aries, but it needs to go slow. And for Claude, Claude has terrible debt still that he is paying today. Still, he has bankruptcy and debt. So that's Claude's Saturn in the 8th house. And Demetra has used Claude's chart in her teachings. And she asked his permission because it was so unbelievably bad. So it was also the condition of his father. Very bad, 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 bad father. So brings debt, imprisonment, false accusations. Claude was in court for years with false accusations, sorrow, grief, chronic misfortune. So if your Saturn's not in good condition, you can have sorrow, grief, and chronic misfortune, and also skeletal problems. Like, it is literally the bony structures. And I have knee problems because of my Saturn trine my moon Mercury in Capricorn, which rules the bones. So the goal is to develop autonomous, steadfast character. So even if your Saturn is ouchy, all right, even if your Saturn is not really able to bring about conditions, make it conscious. And I would say the easiest way to do that for you at this point as new astrologers is to get this book. It will help you tremendously. It really helps. And I marked a couple of pages. So you get the words that you can read to your client. Up in the front of this book, it gives you where is the dignity, where is the detriment, where is the exaltation, where is the fall, what is the orbit, meaning it's 29 years. So it's very slow around, whereas Jupiter is 12 years, so it spends about 1 year in each of the signs. And like that. And then if you go towards the back of the book, I marked another page where, say you're not sure about how to read stuff like a Saturn-Pluto conjunction right here, and you don't know, you're trying to make it up, it's your first time doing a chart or something. So Saturn and Pluto is transformation, instinctive thirst for power, but also control, steadfast change, and death and regeneration. Those are some of the words. So if your family member or your client has a Saturn-Pluto thing going on their chart, or there's a transiting Saturn-Pluto like we had in 2020, you know there's going to be death and regeneration happening. So in 2020, we were all like, but you had to persevere, right? What did you have to say in 2020 and 2021 and 2022? What was the key word? No! I don't want to scream at him. No, I will not. All right. So given that we have a Saturn Nessus thing happening again, folks, you can expect that there is some necessary no coming up soon. Very necessary no. Now, this little chart I made for you, just, I want to show you how to use this planetary condition. Okay. So, and Demetra, this is mine from when I studied with her. So you just write it out. If you're not a person that writes things, I suppose you could figure out how to make a PDF of it, but I don't like using AI, honestly. So what you do with your Saturn is it in Cancer? Is it in Leo? Is it in fall in Aries? What mode is it in? Meaning, is it immutable like Pisces, like Sinead O'Connor has it? Is it fixed in Taurus, like I have it? Or is it cardinal in Aries, like Claude has it? So that's the mode. So what you do is over here by your Saturn, right? You make this chart for yourself. And over by the Saturn, you start evaluating. And you don't have to use my chart. You can make your own chart. What mode is it in? Is it benefic or malefic in that position? Is it in a male or female? So gender, is it in a male sign like Aries, or is it in a female sign like Taurus? So forth like that. And remember, all the planets will have both a male and female sign. And then what element is it in? Is it in fire? Is it in water? Is it in earth? Is it in air? It's kind of okay in air. Isn't that funny that it's like in exaltation in Libra, which is in air, and it's in domicile Lord in Aquarius, which is air. So what Saturn likes is to be cold and dry. And you know how air like will dry the laundry? What does Saturn not like? It doesn't like to be wet, and it doesn't like to be hot. So in that case, you can start to evaluate, and you can make it a huge, like this is just an example. You can make a huge page for yourself and just do Saturn for yourself. And then, so is it on page 99, Jupiter and Saturn rejoice when rising before the sun. So let's go back and find someone's chart. You've got to find out, is it rising before the sun? So here's Sinead O'Connor. Here's the sun. The sun goes like this every day. It goes like this, and then it moves a degree forward every day. Okay, so it always goes like this. Saturn is here. It also goes like this. So in Sinead O'Connor's chart, the sun is here. It's going like this. Saturn's here. So Saturn is behind the sun. So for that, because it's behind the sun, it also gets a negative. It's in water. That's a negative. So did Sinead O'Connor have the ability to say no? Kind of wobbly there, folks. Kind of. Her Jupiter was good. Her Jupiter's good because her Jupiter is rising before the sun. Okay, here's her Jupiter. Here's the sun. It's rising before the sun. All right. I know it gets a little bit like, where is it when it starts to get to the opposition? But yes, it is rising. So her Jupiter was in great condition. She could get out there with her Jupiter in Leo and perform and say what she needed to say about not singing the national anthem and, whatever she wanted to say about religion and politics or whatever. Her Jupiter was great. Her boundaries, however, her ability to say no, not good, folks, not good. But if I was her astrologer, I would have been like, Sinead, you got to say no to that. Say no. Say no. Say no to your whole career. And the other sad and terrible thing is that her child did die. Her child predeceased her. So if you look up some things, and that is like this whole family thing, very sad because her child also felt like a wounded outcast. Really, it's very in the chart. It's so, I don't know. I mean, I don't know Sinead O'Connor, but can I read her chart? Can you read her chart and be like, wow, that was a scripted experience? And if her, her friends were good astrologers, they'd be like, Sinead, I'm going to help you say no. I'm going to help you. I know it hurts. I know it's sad. I know it gives you grief to give up your career, but you cannot join the Black Eye Club. So that's how you do it. So Jupiter, her Jupiter is rising before the sun, but her Saturn is behind the sun. And the ascendant descendant line is the eastern western horizon of what is rising and what is behind. Now, most people have to study with an astrologer personally because this I'm just giving us all an overview. So it's important when you learn this, you send me a chart and we can look at any chart in the whole world. You send me a chart and what changes about our relationship. And I'm always happy to just do counseling astrology and hear all the things that are coming up for you. But if you really want to be like I am, like a disciplined astrologer, and you don't have to be, you can just be a casual astrologer like Claude is, but you want to send me a chart and determine, and I will with you figure out keywords and planetary condition. So that's how you study personally with an astrologer. So Venus and Mars rejoice rising after the sun because they are the friends to the moon, whereas Saturn and Jupiter, which are live planets and have magnetosphere, and also the moons around Jupiter also have magnetosphere. So the moons are alive around Jupiter. So those are life. Our sun, our star, is still alive, even though there's a blinking decoy one up there too. But there is Jupiter and Saturn are alive. Their moons are alive. They have magnetosphere. Just look up Ganymede. It says Ganymede has a magnetosphere. Whereas Venus and Mars are dead planets and they go with the moon. With Mercury, Mercury, when it's rising before the sun, is diurnal, meaning it's a friend to the sun. So let's see if we can figure this out with Sinead. Okay, yeah, her Mercury is rising before the sun. So here's the sun. Sinead O'Connor's Mercury is here. So that rose before the sun. That would look, you know what that would look like? Right now, if you get up at 5 a.m., I get up ridiculously early, like 3:30. But if you look out there, you will see Venus and Jupiter in the sky. Venus will be lower, Jupiter's higher. I think that's what it is. I took a picture this week. Anyways, they're both out there before the sun. For Sinead, Mercury would have been out there on the eastern horizon when it was still dark, and then the sun would rise. So her Mercury is a friend to the sun. That means she's able to communicate. She had a great voice, really amazing a cappella. When they heard her and the level of octaves that she could sing, but her Mercury's in Scorpio. So it's like she would sing about like, taboo things that people were like, oh my gosh, and they'd be roaring and screaming before she even started the song because she sang about like, you know, creepy, taboo, dark things that nobody wants to talk about. So her Mercury was a friend to the sun. And you can do that also. The part where it says solar phase is her planet direct? Her Mercury's direct, her Jupiter's direct, her Saturn's direct, her Venus is direct, her Mars is direct, her Pluto's direct, her Juno's direct. So when you have a chart with a lot of planets direct, you will rise quicker, earlier, younger. Sinead O'Connor was, on stage by the time she was 23. So she was cutting record deals by the time she was 23. So solar phase, this section is very important because you'll rise first and get things going. If your planets are all direct, you'll get things going. Whereas if you're born with a lot of retrograde planets, Demetra George told me that you're slower. You might not really get going until you're 60. You might not really hit things, going fast until you're 65 or 70 or even 80 years old. And your planets by progression go direct. That's why, and I'm going to repeat this again, if we all lived a normal experience here of 1,000 or 2,000 years and then just, transfigured and went back to source, through your own volition. You were done, and you climbed the mountain, the whole mountain. You're at the top of the mountain. You finished everything. You had a beautiful paradise experience here on Earth, and you go back to source. That's how it should work. You should be here like the old beings in the Bible before the Anunnaki really started degenerating us. You lived as long as you wanted to live here. Okay. So that's it. I don't know what else to do with you, but we've been doing pretty good. We're at an hour and 26 minutes. So what would the group like to do? What would you need? Do you want to hear more about what an eclipse is? Because today's an eclipse. What would you all like to do at this point? You can put it in the chat. Do you have some questions? Do you want to hear some key words for Saturn in different signs? What would you like to do? The eclipses. Okay. So the eclipses, yeah, the eclipse. What is an eclipse, since we're on an eclipse right now? All right, lots of people are going for the eclipse thing. Let's look at the eclipse. So what an eclipse is it's a portal. It's a moment in time. Demetra said if it's visible, if it's long lasting, meaning, like 3 hours long, then it will have a longer event horizon for what it is that the eclipse chart shows. So today we're having the eclipse. It is known that you want to do all the practices during that day of the eclipse that you want to continue forward with the eclipse. So if you want to meditate, or you want to reach into a higher spiritual space, or whatever, you want to journal, you want to write a book, make an intention that day. Eclipses are like doorways. Okay. It will be at least 6 months before we even start to see what is unfolding from the eclipse. But if it's visible, if it's long lasting, if it's total, this is a total. All right, this is a total eclipse. It's called the harvest moon or the blood moon. So this is like right now, right? It's UTC time is 1808 for this eclipse, 1108 on Pacific Coast time. So we're getting to this eclipse right now. It's starting to form right now. And I will give examples of how to use it in your chart too. Okay. So if it's prominent in your chart, you will have planets somewhere in Pisces around these degrees: 15, 18, 20, 29 Pisces. So look in your chart. What do you have between 15 and 29 Pisces? In my chart, I have my North Node, which is at 16 Pisces, and the planet Chariklo. I can already feel it. I am shape-shifting, like, folks, I don't even know who I am anymore. And you're all counting on me being a teacher, right? And I'm going, holy crap, Claude, holy crap, maybe you can teach tomorrow. Like, I am going through some unbelievable transformation. Like, I can't even identify my body. Like, last night, I didn't know whether I was living, dying, or transfiguring. And I was like, honey, it's just the eclipse. So if you have anything between 15 and 29 Pisces, or your ascendant is there, Stacy, you are going to go through some big changes, some big transformation. Many of us who are born in the 60s, because Chariklo is a 63-year orbit, many of us have Chariklo there. So you're going to shapeshift, you're going to transfigure. By the end of the year, I don't even know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be so different. And then the next way you do it is, what house is it in? Okay, so in the eclipse chart, because I was doing it for Nish's Cosmic Salon, I did it for the West Coast. But this could be anywhere. You would run the event chart for your location. So this one is for Seattle, Washington. So it could affect your sixth house if you have Pisces in the sixth house, if you have Pisces in the seventh house, and so forth. It will affect you in some way. With the Nessus thing, I mean, you all know what I told you privately last week. You know, there was a funeral in our family that happened just yesterday. So things are changing. I mean, massive amounts of things are changing right now. Claude has Pisces in the seventh house, so his relationship with me just changed tremendously. Why? Because his mom just exited. So you see how that affects for Claude. He has Pisces in the seventh house. He's going through a massive transformation in terms of now he's an orphan, right? And I become the primary relationship. Chariklo is a shapeshifter, and if you have Chariklo in Pisces and this eclipse North Node is hitting it, you are going to change. You are changing right now. There is some big transformation that is happening for you. Whereas if Pisces, your ascendant, like you are going to change tremendously within your physical structure. So just know that you might need, after today's eclipse, you might need a day off. I've already scheduled, like, get ready, folks, so that I am ready for our retreat. I'm taking 3 weeks off soon. So after we finish this, I know, because this eclipse is hitting my natal North Node and Chariklo. And Chariklo we will absolutely do next week. I will give you full details on what Chariklo is. But I know this is hitting my chart directly on my natal North Node. So in my calendar, I'm taking the last week of September. After this, our last class in September, I'm taking that week off, and then I'm taking the first 2 weeks off in October. Because what an eclipse does is it starts to bring you into whatever it is that you have at that degree. So if you have Chariklo, you know you're shape-shifting. You're going to be somebody else soon. And that's just the fact. Whereas if you stay busy, 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 hard work, super distracted, you're not incorporating the good part of what it is that you could transfigure and shapeshift into. So that's why I'm taking last week of September, first 2 weeks of October off. And you'll probably see some stuff. I'll be down in Florida by then. So you'll see some stuff from me, but I'm not doing any sessions because I know how to say no. And Saturn is coming back here towards Nessus in the North Node. And I know if I don't hold my boundaries, I'm going to be too tired to even be an effective teacher. I need to be like superb. If I'm going to do sessions for people, I want to be brilliant, bright, present, energized, and capable. Okay, so Saturn requires responsibility. When Saturn is in Pisces, you can die of grief. Or you can go, no, I'm going to be wild. I'm going to be feral. I'm going to run a retreat. We're going to have an amazing time. In what? Water. Water. Because the other thing you do with an eclipse is you go, oh, it's a water trine. It's a water trine. So not only is it in mutable Pisces, but it picks up Black Moon Lilith, Juno, Vesta, Atlantis, Haumea are all in Scorpio. Jupiter is in Cancer, where it's an exaltation. So what do? In order to not die of grief? You go play in the water. You go and you eat plants from water, like the blue lotus. All right. So I'm going to be bringing blue lotus tincture for us to experiment. You don't have to. I mean, you all can say no. And one thing about my retreats is you can say no. You don't want to go over there, and you don't want to consume that. You don't want to drink that. You don't want to eat that. You don't want to go to a fire ceremony. You don't want to trance dance. You can say no. And I'll be like, yeah, so love to hear that. Right. All right. So with this chart, you can also see the square. So we've got one really good energy of a trine, and then you have a T square here. What is it? T square is Mars in Libra, which doesn't know how to make a decision. So that's why, some people are canceling and some people are still trying to figure out whether they're going to go or not. That's Mars in Libra, but by the time Mars gets to Scorpio on September 23rd, you'll know. So just know that. And then Jupiter is the apex of two different geometries here. Jupiter is the top of the grand trine, but it's also the top of the T square from Mars and Chiron. Chiron is the wound of hybridization from being raped by the Saturn Nessus thing. So here we have Chiron and Eris, what has to be acknowledged, even if nobody likes you and ever invites you to a party again, your family doesn't love you anymore. Chiron and Eris, square to Jupiter. But Jupiter is going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go into happy, exalted, euphoric water, or it's going to get struggled with a decision that it made or didn't make and is suffering the wound of hybridization. Now, the next part is Pluto is traveling with a very important asteroid, DNA 55555. It's only prominent because it's exactly conjunct Pluto. And because Orcus is on the south node, it's like, what have you done over the last 13,000 years? What were your decisions for the last 25,000 years? What are your decisions today? What is your decision next week? So Pluto conjunct DNA, and Saturn is the ruler of where Pluto's sitting, and Saturn is sad with grief. So that's how you work that. Saturn is the ruler of where Pluto is with DNA. So if there's sadness, it's because they didn't say no. No, absolutely not. All right, you see how that works? That's how you read your chart, and that's how you read an event chart. So Orcus up here is on the south node. South node is also part of what's called the ecliptical path, the movement of the sun and the earth in its ecliptical path. And I'll have to show you, I can use the astronomy magazine to show you what is an ecliptical path. But Orcus is saying with Mercury, that is a domicile lord in Virgo, were you the lord of your estate? What decisions did you make? And then last week, someone had asked at the very end of the call, if you made a bad decision, say you messed up, do you blame it on others? Do you avoid it? Do you, scapegoat? Do you say I got the placebo? Or do you say I was stupid? I made a mistake. I did that. For Saturn, who is definitely prominent in this event chart, if you blame it on others, Saturn will bring, like I was kind of telling you last week, that Jupiter is very protective and it'll send a thunderbolt. If you are not the lord of your estate and not responsible for your actions, it brings debt, imprisonment, false accusations in court, sorrow, grief, and chronic misfortune. So if you don't have a backbone and you made a mistake, then you have to say, I did it. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I now need some help. I don't know what to do. It's one of those kind of things. So that's the thing. You can't blame others with Saturn. Saturn is like, you must take responsibility for it. Venus is at the midheaven in Leo here, and Venus is a morning star. So she's the battle goddess here, right? So she's rising. Look, this is how you can tell that she's a morning star. Here's the sun. Mercury is so close to the sun that you can't really see it as a morning star, but pretty soon they'll start to separate, and you will. Mercury's a morning star, Venus is a morning star, and Jupiter are a morning star. So we've got 3 planets as morning stars right now. You'll be able to see them on the eastern horizon. In that case, Jupiter's very, very strong. If you were the lord of your estate, then blessings are coming. Good things are coming to you. Good things are coming to you because you were the lord of your estate. And even if you made a mistake, admit it. Get some help. Figure this out, folks. Like, there is help available, but not if you're going to blame others for your problem or your lack of maturity about the whole situation. Now, the interesting thing here is asteroid Atlantis is traveling, and in the next eclipse, that one is prominent too. So Atlantis and all the decisions that we've made from Atlantis are still coming forward in this eclipse. So that's what I can tell you. An eclipse can be 13,000 years worth of what was your decision? What was your decision back then? I mean, did you go with the Anunnaki and, get the goods? Well, you're probably still in trouble from that. That's not karma. What that is causality. So there's a difference between karma and causality. Saturn is not about karma. It's about causality. Were you able to say no? Were you able to set a boundary? If you were able to say no and set a boundary and say, stop raping me, stop blood poisoning me, stop murdering me, you murderers, or get off of our planet, we would have still been in a golden age right now. And so with this dumb ship that's coming, or whatever this stupid thing is that's moving super fast, are you going to be able to say no? Or are you going to be like, oh, well, I mean, the gods have returned. There is no God except you. You are the God. You're the thing that came down from the cosmos. You are the Christ. The Christ is right here. It lives in your third eye. It is literally a part of your anatomy. You are the Christ. All right. There's nobody else coming. So if they get here and they're like, oh, the Christ has returned, you're going to be like, no, I am the Christ. I am. So to me, the other part that I want you to know about eclipses is Sabian symbols. So the Sabian symbol for 18 degrees right there. Sabian symbols are all 360 degrees all the way around. Each one of them has keynote, like almost like a tarot card reading. The Sabian symbol at 18 degrees is, I have to turn it this way, a well-staged, exciting display. Now that's something I didn't have when I spoke with Nish at the Cosmic Salon, which is a 2-hour explanation of this, and you should all listen to that. A well-staged, exciting display is coming. A well-staged, exciting display is coming. This eclipse, Saturn is applying. All right, Saturn's moving retrograde back towards Nessus and the North Node. Are you going to be able to say no? Even if you made a mistake and did something, can you be the lord of your estate and say no? So that's some stuff about eclipses. There's, the choice, are you going to stay in ecstasy deprivation and a grief epidemic, which I've talked about before, Or are you going to choose the water trine like euphoria? I'm going to have fun. I'm going to splash around because I know who I am. I am divinity. There's no divinity out there coming on a spaceship, folks. If it's coming on a ship, it's dead because dead things have to use technology. The rest of us can travel by Star Merkaba throughout the entire cosmos. That's why your body is so important. That's why you have to say no and you have to have boundaries. All right. So people are telling me a lot of different things about where your personal, chariklos and north nodes and nessuses are. I'm also seeing that someone went kayaking yesterday. I think that's Katie. So yeah, right now, today, like this afternoon, while this is happening, go and enjoy yourself because it is a doorway. It is a type of a portal. It is an experience that whatever you're choosing today, are you choosing the epidemic of grief? Or are you choosing ecstasy? Which are you going to choose this afternoon? Do that. Okay. Use it. Use the eclipse to your advantage. Now, there was some other things that I wanted to show you about the cosmos from these magazines. I like looking at these magazines. I really love astronomy. I mean, I love the stars. I'm kind of addicted to the stars. And there was a section in here I really wanted to show you, but Lord knows how it is when you're trying to leaf through. Anyways, the ecliptical orbit, which I know is in here because I had looked at it. Here's one version. The ecliptical orbit, this is just like the planisphere. All right, this is like my planisphere that I can move every day and figure out what alignment that we're having. So in this one, the path of the ecliptic is this red line. This red line is the path of the ecliptic, okay? And you can see the path of the ecliptic. There are constellations on both sides. So the path of the ecliptic back in October of 2024, Saturn was here on the path of the ecliptic. Back then, it was moving through constellations toward Pisces. So Pisces is here, and they all overlap. Satis, the sea monster, is here. Tiny little Aries, itty bitty, is there. But on either side of the ecliptic are constellations. So then again, like, why do you just call it Pisces? Because it's actually a whole bunch of constellations. So the name of it is kind of irrelevant. It's just a seasonal depiction. But that is the path of the ecliptic, okay? And then it moves in the galaxy. So it moves like this. And you know what that makes? That's the waveform of time. So it's not just one straight line. It also goes like this over that ecliptic. All right. And then what does that make? The movement of the planets is your magnetized light body of your DNA. Okay. So that movement that I just showed you like this, that's the waveform. So when you look at my chart, you're looking at my DNA. You're looking at my DNA. All right. And the asteroids are also so unbelievable because I had a client yesterday and there was a whole bunch of African names for the asteroids. And I was like, are you African? I mean, you don't look African. But when you really do like a long DNA search, you might have the E1B1 line straight out of Africa, which was the original human, the E1B1 line. Okay. And also Ursula, which I have, which is the sea witch, which is my Chariklo in Pisces. Okay. So all of that is super fascinating. You're literally, I know that it looks like this on a piece of paper, but what does it look like in the sky was that it's going like this. That's your DNA. Isn't that amazing? And wherever Saturn is in your placement in your natal chart is literally what you will work through, because that's your father's lineage of his mitochondrial, not Y chromosome. It, it's not X and Y. It's the mitochondrial DNA of my father's line that then is where my Saturn is on that wave form. Isn't it amazing? Astrology is your divine blueprint and it shows your DNA. Okay, so Sandy says that she found an asteroid list at famdom.com. So there's different asteroids lists. I use Mark Pottinger's program, but the asteroid number that you're looking at is 55555 for DNA, and it's unbelievable. Does it make sense to you all though that the chart that I showed you from 2020 with asteroid 3206 Wuhan was a scripted situation, and the causality of that situation of whether you were able to say yes or no brings you into this event chart with asteroid DNA conjunct Pluto. It's astounding to me. And so if you don't have all the skills of Don Juan, who said, he's just trying to get his freedom from all these inorganic beings that are in here with us, then you are, your next best skill is as an astrologer. In my opinion, astrology and shamanism go together. And yeah, there's a lot of different Jeff and Jeffrey asteroids. So someone in the group, in our little tiny Facebook group, where you have to send me a Facebook request and then I send you an invite to get into that group, also had Jeff prominent in the chart. And an event happened with a Jeff, with that person, that was concerning with the Nessus and the Mars. And if you were an astrologer and you saw that that asteroid was conjunct Mars and Nessus, and I'm sorry that I can't inform all the astrologers of the whole world to help your child, but you would never let that child into the household of that person. That's how it works. So when astrology is given to you, you're often looking for the poisons, what to avoid in the chart. If you know that your Saturn is not in very good condition, practice saying no. And you're not sure when to say no, I can help you too. That's the point of counseling astrologer. You are studying to be a counseling astrologer where you actually speak to your clients. But do you know most of the astrologers out there, including the people at astro.com, you're never going to meet them. They're never going to talk to you. They're going to give you a computer printout. So there's some very famous astrologers that have never spoken with a client. In the lineage of Demetra George, you talk to your client, you find out who they are, you read their personal asteroids when you are given a personal name, or you show them how to find out. Excuse me, my Saturn in Taurus. There's my throat, folks. I have to be very careful with my voice, so I can only do so many sessions a day. That's Saturn in Taurus. I have to have boundaries about how long I speak. So now I'm going to let any one of you speak that wants to speak in the video, or else we'll end the video for today. Anybody want to say anything about anything or have questions? The name of the book I just shared, Joya? Do you mean the Sinead or the keywords of astrology or the astronomy journal? I know I shared a lot of books. So here's the astronomy journal. The astronomy journal, generally you can get that at a library. Super fun. I just, you can check them out and they discard them. This is, a year later. This is from October 2024. It's called Astronomy, the world's best-selling astronomy magazine. And if your library does not have that, it is $6.99 to buy. I used to use a periodical called The Mountain Astrologer, but oh my gosh, the astrology magazines, they are just crappy new age pieces of crap now, folks. But the images are beautiful. And if you like to do art, if you love doing art, like look at the images. The cosmos is so amazing. This was the one where it also shows you the shape and the size and the angle of the rotation. So we've had major disasters in the solar system. So it actually shows you the angle of all of the planets. When we get to Uranus, and I don't know, I can't remember right now what week we're doing, you're going to find Uranus spins upside down and backwards to the rest of them. So sometimes knowing how the planet spins or doesn't spin, like the moon doesn't spin, it doesn't even rotate, but Uranus is like on its side spinning the other way to everything else. So that's how you know Uranus is about revolutionary insight, because it's doing something completely different than anything else in the solar system. And that gives you some ideas too of the shape and the size and how they spin in order to make the DNA in your body. Now, the thing I want to say, yes, for star paintings, if you want to do star paintings, oh my gosh, so much fun. Do it like here's Antares. I mean, isn't that amazing? So you could paint Antares. You could paint any of the stars that are prominent in your experience. Let's see if I can find another one that I've already taught you about. I know the Pleiades were in here too somewhere. So you can look at them and draw these images. There's also the other great thing about libraries is our two local libraries, and I live where there's no like street lights or, traffic. There's nothing. I mean, I live nowhere, folks. They have, because I live out here and there's no light pollution, they have little telescopes that you can rent for a week. So you could actually use a telescope and look at these things and zoom in. Yeah, so the moon is very interesting. This moon that we have that's orbiting with Earth does not spin, but it seems to emit its own light. It's a very strange object. I don't know that it's really reflecting light from the sun. I'm not sure that's what's going on, because I've heard about the Resonance Foundation says that when you have an eclipse, like we're going to have a new moon eclipse. This is a full moon eclipse, and then we're going to have a new moon eclipse on the 20th. They pass in such a way that there's no way they could do that unless they were actually holographic. Like the size of them and what we've been told that they are, there's no way that they're actually passing like that. So that's the amazing other thing, that you start to go into the astronomy and go, what are these objects? Isn't that one too big to pass in front of that one? Venus, the planets also can do an eclipse. So I think it was 2012 that Venus passed in front of the sun. So don't think these orbits are overly fixed, folks. These things move. They move. They're wanderers. All right. So Venus passed in front of the sun. That we had a Venus eclipse. So it's not just the sun, moon, and earth. Mercury can also eclipse. There's other kinds of eclipses. And then on that note, let's finish it this way. You have a prenatal eclipse. These are your postnatal eclipses, but you also can run at astro.com your prenatal eclipse, which I have a whole writing about. That is the eclipse that happened when you were in your mother's womb. When you were in your mother's womb, there could have been an asteroid too associated to the prenatal eclipse. So if you want to do your prenatal eclipse asteroids, you just have to tell me that that's what you want to work on, and we can work on that too and find out what was it from your mother's womb that you were going to also experience, because what the eclipses are is they're the nodes. All right. So I was born with a North Node in Pisces. So my eclipse is return. That's my natal node. So I'm having an eclipse return to my natal node. So you all know I am about to change tremendously. I am. I don't know whether I'm living or dying. Like I am transforming like unbelievable right now, folks. All right, it's 2 p.m. So I think that was 2 hours of hardcore studying. Yes, we will chat offline now. So goodbye. Thank you everyone for listening.